I was used to waking up before Enid. 68 years of life had taught me to make do with 5 hours of sleep. And now that she was demanding more and more of my attention, I was awake before dawn. That April morning, when the sky was just beginning to lighten over Baldwin Park, I stood at our bedroom window, watching the outlines of the neighbors' houses and trees gradually emerge. Enid was asleep, her breathing quiet, almost imperceptible. The cancer was sucking the life out of her, day by day, hour by hour. We bought our one-story house on Ramson Street 35 years ago, when prices in Baldwin Park were ridiculous by today's standards. I worked as a building inspector, and Enid and I saved money to pay off the mortgage early. We did it in 12 years. The house was now worth 6 times what we'd paid for it. We weren't going to sell it, though. This was where our son Axel had grown up, where we'd lived our whole lives, where Enid wanted to die. She stirred in bed, and I hurried to her. "Hope!" Her voice was weak, but her eyes were clear. "What time is it?" "Almost 6, I answered, sitting down on the edge of the bed and adjusting her pillow. "How are you feeling today?" "The usual," she tried to smile. "Have you taken your pills yet?" "A long time ago. Would you like some tea?" Our daily ritual. I helped her sit up, put pillows behind her back, changed her nightgown if she got sweaty during the night, made tea with honey, which she barely drank. Took her morning medications myself, for blood pressure and joints, and gave her painkillers. We usually watch the morning news, but today she asked me to turn off the TV. "Cedric is coming today," Enid said, taking small sips of tea. "I told you yesterday." "Yes, you did." Cedric, her only brother, lived in San Francisco and visited us rarely. Their relationship was always warm but distant. He came once a year, 2 at the most, usually for Christmas. The last time we saw each other was 3 months ago, when Enid's diagnosis was already known, but her condition was not yet critical. "I want to talk to him alone, Hope." "Sonore, of course." I was surprised, but I didn't show it. In 41 years of marriage, we'd kept almost no secrets from each other. But now I didn't bother to ask. In the last few weeks, Enid had sometimes been strangely secretive, as if she were afraid of something. "I'm gonna go make breakfast. Scrambled eggs?" "Not today. Maybe just toast and jam." By 7:30, Enid was dozing off again. I left the bedroom, quietly closing the door. There was silence in the living room, broken only by the ticking of the old wall clock I'd inherited from my father. I loved that clock as much as I loved my collection of antique furniture, which I was restoring after retirement. The carpentry shop in the garage became my sanctuary, a place where I could forget about my wife's illness, if only for an hour or two. I turned on the coffee maker and pulled out my cell phone to text my son. Axel worked as an accountant for a construction company and lived half an hour away, but he visited us less and less often. Or rather, he came when I asked, but it felt like it was out of obligation rather than desire. "Cedric is coming today. Your mom wants to see him. Why don't you come by tonight?" The answer came 10 minutes later. "I'll try, but no promises." Indigo made Octavia's dentist appointment. I suppressed a sigh. Indigo, Axel's wife, always found a reason not to bring our granddaughter or to discourage Axel from visiting us. In their 11 years of marriage, I'd never been able to approach her, a cold, calculating woman who looked at Enid and me as a necessary evil that had to be put up with. Axel, on the other hand, was completely under her influence. My phone rang, and I was surprised to see Cedric's name on the screen. "Hope, I'm on my way. I'll be there in about an hour." "Okay, we're waiting. Enid's resting now." "How's she doing?" "It's getting worse." I didn't see the point in embellishing. "The doctors say it won't be long now." "I know," I could hear the pain in his voice. "I'll see you later." I sipped my coffee, glanced through the morning paper I still subscribed to, out of old habit, and checked Enid's medications on the nightstand. I kept the morphine the doctor had prescribed in the safe. Enid didn't want to take it until the last minute. "I don't want to leave in a fog," she said. At 9:30, the doorbell rang. Cedric looked aged, though he was only 61. Tall like Enid, with the same penetrating blue eyes, but with almost completely gray hair, which he had slicked back. "Hello, Hope." He hugged me tightly. "How are you holding up?" "Day to day," I shrugged. "Enid woke up a few minutes ago, waiting for you." Cedric nodded and walked into the house, taking off his shoes at the door. He always respected our rules. He had a small leather briefcase in his hand. She wanted to talk to you alone, I said, as I led him toward the bedroom. I'll be in the workshop if you need me. Thanks, Hope. He squeezed my shoulder. I need to discuss some things with her. I nodded and left the two of them alone, feeling vaguely uneasy. What kind of questions could they have that I shouldn't know about? Enid and I had drawn up our wills long ago. Our finances were in order. Everything was transparent and clear. Maybe some family secrets? But in 40 years, Enid seemed to have told me everything about her childhood and youth. In the workshop, I was working on a 19th century dresser I was restoring for a local collector. The work was soothing, allowing me to focus on something concrete, tangible. Wood doesn't lie, doesn't hide, doesn't manipulate. If you do it right, it responds with beauty and durability. An hour or so later, there was a knock at the workshop door. Cedric looked serious but calm. She's asleep, he said, tired from talking. Is everything all right? I put the tools away and wiped my hands with a rag. Yeah, just some things she wanted to take care of, he said. You know my sister, she's always in control. I know, I smiled involuntarily. Will you stay for lunch? I'd love to. I plan to be in the city for a few days. I'm staying at a hotel nearby. You can stay with us, I suggested. Axel's room is free. I don't want to cramp you, Cedric shook his head. Enid needs peace, and so do you. We went back to the house. I looked in on Enid. She was asleep, breathing evenly. There was a glass of water on the nightstand and the pills I'd left behind. Had she taken her medication? I asked Cedric. Yes, I made sure she did. Over the lunch I had prepared, we talked about the usual things. Politics, sports, my hobbies. Cedric talked about his job as an investment consultant, about the new apartment he'd bought in San Francisco. He didn't mention the conversation with Enid again, and I didn't ask. After lunch, the phone rang. It was Indigo. Hope! Her voice always sounded too loud, like she was addressing a deaf person. Axel said Cedric's here? Yeah, he's here. We'll stop by tonight, around 6. Octavia wants to see her grandmother. I was surprised by the sudden desire to visit us. Usually I had to beg them to come. Okay, I answered. Enid will be glad. In the evening, shortly before Axel and his family arrived, Enid woke up again. I helped her wash and change into a clean nightgown. Is Cedric still here? She asked as I brushed her thinning hair. Yes, he's in the living room. Axel and Indigo and Octavia will be here soon. Good, she said quietly. Hope, you're not mad that I talked to Cedric alone? Of course not, I kissed her on the temple. You have a right to have private conversations. You've always been so understanding. She took my hand with her pale fingers. I love you, you know. I know. I love you too. When Axel, Indigo, and Octavia arrived, I noticed how Indigo immediately turned her attention to Cedric. She was in her element, elegant, with perfectly styled brown hair, wearing the expensive suit she wore to her job as an insurance appraiser. Their 14-year-old daughter, Octavia, dark-haired and quiet, went straight to her grandmother's room. Axel, who looked like me when I was young but with Enid's eyes, looked tense. How's Mom? He asked, shaking my hand. Not a bad day today, I replied. Not much pain, conscious. Ray, good. He nodded and walked into the living room, where Indigo was already talking animatedly with Cedric. I heard a fragment of their conversation. Real estate investments are very profitable now, Indigo said, especially in this neighborhood. Maybe, Cedric said evasively, but the market is unstable. I went into the kitchen to make tea. Indigo came in a few minutes later. Hope, she lowered her voice. How long do the doctors think Enid has left? A week or two, maybe a month. I gritted my teeth. Her bluntness always struck me as tactless. I see, she nodded. Axel is very worried. We think that after this is over, you'd better not be alone in this big house. I remained silent, pouring boiling water into the kettle. Shurdikum, we have people who might be able to appraise the house for sale, she continued. Prices are good right now. Dash Indigo, I turned to her. My wife is still alive. Let's discuss this later. Sure, she gave me a sympathetic smile. I just wanted you to know that we're thinking of you. At that moment, I felt a prick of anxiety. Indigo never thought about me, only about herself and her own interests. I took the tea to Enid and Octavia. The granddaughter was sitting on the edge of the bed telling her grandmother about school. She smiled at the sight of me, the only person in her son's family who genuinely enjoyed our conversation. Grandpa, she stood up and hugged me. I missed you. Me too, little girl. I stroked her head. How are your studies going? It's okay, she shrugged. Math is still hard. If you want, I can help, I offered. Next time, bring your textbooks. I will. The evening was tense. Indigo tried several times to start a conversation about the future, about the house, about practical matters. Axel remained silent, only occasionally nodding to his wife. Cedric kept aloof, listening more than speaking. They left around 8, and I breathed a sigh of relief. She's like a vulture, Cedric said when we were alone in the living room. Enid had fallen asleep again after they left. I'm sorry, Hope, but your sister-in-law... I know, I nodded. She's always like that. Axel can't see, or doesn't want to see. Enid is worried about you, Cedric said after a pause. After she's gone. I can handle it, I rubbed my face with my hands. It'll be hard without her, but I'll find something to do. I'm sure you will, he smiled. You're a strong person, Hope. The next 2 weeks passed like a blur. Enid's condition worsened every day. Cedric visited us daily, sometimes staying overnight in Axel's room, helping me care for my sister. Axel came less often, always with Indigo, who spent more time talking to Cedric than visiting her dying mother-in-law. One day I overheard her asking him about trust funds and inheritance taxes. Cedric answered evasively, making it clear that he did not wish to discuss these topics. On one of the last days Enid was awake, she asked me to call Cedric and leave them alone together again. I did not object, though I was becoming more and more disturbed by the secret talk. Half an hour later, Cedric came out of the room with reddened eyes. She said goodbye to me, he said quietly, and she made me a promise. What promise? I asked. To look after you, he put his hand on my shoulder. Don't worry, I'll keep my word. Enid died in her sleep 3 days later. I held her hand as she took her last breath. It was just the two of us in the room, just the way she wanted it. The funeral was 4 days later. Neighbors, my former co-workers, a few of Enid's friends from book club came. Axel kept a low profile. Indigo was flawless in her role as the grieving daughter-in-law. But I saw her whispering with some man in a suit after the service. Cedric stood beside me during the entire ceremony, cheering me on. When we got home after the funeral, Indigo took me aside. Hope, Axel and I have discussed, and we think you should move in with us for a while. This house is too big for one person. I looked at her, and for the first time I noticed in her eyes what I'd always felt intuitively, a cold calculation. Thank you, but I'll stay here, I replied. This is my home. Of course, she smiled. But think about it, and about what to do with the house in the future. When everyone had dispersed, I sat in Enid's in my bedroom, holding a picture of her. The house seemed empty and cold without her. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I felt that the fight was just beginning, and that Indigo wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. The first week without Enid was a blur. I wandered around the house, touching the things that held her presence. The book with the bookmark on page 123, the unfinished scarf for Octavia, the glasses in the case on the nightstand. Sometimes I just sat in her chair, breathing in the elusive scent of her perfume. I didn't fall asleep until morning, exhausted by grief and memories. Cedric stayed in town. He visited me every day, bringing me food I'd barely touched, helping me sort through papers, and answering condolences. Without him, I probably would have fallen apart completely. On the 10th day after the funeral, Axel and Indigo came to visit, without Octavia. We sent her to my mother's, Indigo explained, entering the house uninvited. She needed to get her mind off all this. She looked around as if she were appraising the property. Axel looked tense, avoiding my eyes. How are you, Dad? He finally asked. How can a man who lost his wife after 40 years of marriage be okay? I didn't mean to sound harsh, but that's how it came out. I understand. He looked down. Sorry, we're here to help you with the paperwork. I noticed a leather folder in Indigo's hands. What kind of papers? Enid's will, insurance, pension. She handed it to me. I gathered everything I needed to sign. It was weird. I knew Enid's will was in our home safe, and she and I had discussed it with a lawyer a long time ago. All of our assets were to pass to each other in the event of one of us dying, and when we both died, to Axel. I'll handle it myself, I said, not accepting the folder. Our lawyer, Mr. Price, Indigo interrupted. He retired last year. I contacted his firm, and they've transferred the case to a new specialist. It's all set. I felt a prick of anxiety. Why was Indigo doing this? And why did she know about our lawyer's retirement, and I didn't? Let's go into the office, I suggested. I want to go over everything carefully. In the office, at the mahogany desk where Enid had once reviewed Axel's schoolwork, and I had designed restoration projects, Indigo laid out the papers. This is standard procedure, she said as I looked through the papers. Hanum, you need to sign here and here to get Enid's insurance and to formalize the transfer of retirement savings. There was something about the paperwork I didn't like, but the fatigue and grief made it hard for me to concentrate. The lines were blurring in front of my eyes. I should show it to Cedric, I said. He's good at this sort of thing. Why bring in outsiders? Indigo frowned. This is a family matter. Cedric is not an outsider, I objected. He's Enid's brother. Who shows up once a year? She parried. Axel, tell your father. My son was shuffling from foot to foot at the study door. Dad, Indigo's right. We can handle this ourselves. It's a mere formality. I'll call Cedric. I reached for the phone. Okay. Indigo gathered the papers together abruptly. If you don't trust us, show them to your precious Cedric, but don't procrastinate. There's a deadline for submitting the paperwork. They left half an hour later, leaving me with a heavy feeling. Something was going on, something wrong, but I was too exhausted to figure it out. Cedric arrived in the evening. I showed him the papers Indigo had left behind. Something's not right here, he said, looking through the papers. These aren't standard insurance transfer forms. And why does it mention selling the house? What? I didn't see that item. Mom? Here, in the fine print, he pointed to a paragraph at the end of the page. The undersigned agrees to the sale of jointly acquired property, including the property at the address of... I felt the back of my neck grow cold. Why would they do that? I think they want the house. Cedric set the papers aside. Hope, you don't sign anything Indigo brings. I'll contact a reliable lawyer tomorrow. The next day, Cedric brought Iris Paxton, a probate lawyer, to my house. She looked over the documents Indigo had left behind and shook her head. It's not a probate, but a voluntary transfer of rights to the property, she explained. If you signed, you would effectively be giving the house and all the assets of your marriage to your son and his wife to manage. But why? Enid's will. I'd like to see it, Iris said. Do you have it? I opened the safe in the study and found that the file containing our wills had disappeared. In its place was some other paper. I pulled it out, and it was a will dated 2 months earlier, with a signature that looked like Enid's. It said that the entire estate went to Axel in trust. It was a forgery, I was sure. Enid and I had drawn up the wills 5 years ago, and they were lying here. Iris scrutinized the document. The signature looks genuine, but there are ways to check. If your wife was seriously ill, she may have been pressured. Or she didn't realize what she was signing, Cedric added. Either way, Iris continued, I recommend that a new will be drawn up for you immediately, Mr. Taylor, and check your bank accounts. After she left, Cedric and I drove to the bank. What I learned there shocked me. The joint account where Enid and I kept our savings was almost empty. 2 weeks ago, right after the funeral, someone had withdrawn almost all the money, leaving a minimal balance. How is that possible? I felt the ground slipping from under my feet. I didn't withdraw anything. Who else had access to the account? The bank manager asked. Only Enid, I shook my head. After she died, only me. It says here that the power of attorney for the account was made out to Axel Taylor. The manager showed me the document. I never signed such a power of attorney. We filed a fraud report, but the manager said it would take time to investigate, and the money was already gone. When I got home, I found Axel and Indigo there. They were sitting in the living room as if they were waiting for me. Where have you been? Axel asked. We called you. At the bank, I looked at them, feeling my anger rising. Finding out where the money from Enid's and my account had gone. Indigo and Axel looked at each other. Dad, Axel began cautiously, we transferred the money to a safe account. For your own good, For my own good, I almost shouted. You stole my money. Seditera. We didn't steal it, we protected it, Indigo intervened. Hope, look at you. You haven't been yourself since Enid died. We're worried you might be making rash decisions. I couldn't believe what was happening. My own son and his wife were stealing from me under the guise of caring. Return the money to the account, I demanded. Now. We can't. Axel looked guilty but firm. It's for your own protection. What are you protecting me from? From being able to live in my own house? To have my own money? From crooks, Indigo said. Like Cedric. He's obviously up to something, hanging around you. Cedric is the only one who really cares about me. He's manipulating you, Indigo stood up. Hope, we've discussed this with the doctor. You're depressed, you're not making good judgment calls, you need help. I realized they weren't going to stop. It was a planned takeover of everything I had. But why? Was the money really that important to them? Get out of my house, I said quietly. It's not really your house anymore. Indigo smiled coldly. According to Enid's will, it's a forgery. I raised my voice. Enid would never have left everything to Axel bypassing me. She knew you couldn't do it alone, Axel said. Mom was worried about you. I looked at my son, trying to see him as the boy Enid and I had raised. But in front of me stood a stranger, a puppet in the hands of his wife. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. I pulled out my cell phone. Okay, Indigo nodded. We'll leave, but we'll be back, Hope, with a doctor and a lawyer. The next 2 weeks turned into a nightmare. Indigo and Axel came almost every day, bringing some people, doctors, social workers, lawyers. They all spoke to me in a patronizing tone, asked me strange questions, checked to see if I remembered what day it was, if I could take my own medicine, cook my own food. Cedric was my only support. He hired a lawyer to challenge Enid's fake will and get the money back from the account. But things moved slowly, too slowly. One morning I discovered that the locks on the house had been changed. My key didn't fit. When I rang the doorbell, Indigo answered. You changed the locks? I couldn't believe her insolence. It's for your safety, she let me inside. You forgot to lock the door last night. Anyone could have come in. I never forget to lock the door, see? You don't even remember. That proves we're right. That day I noticed that there were cameras in the house. Small, almost invisible, but they were everywhere. In the living room, in the kitchen, in the hallway. What's that? I pointed to one of them. A security system, answered Axel, who came out of my office with some papers. And monitoring your condition. The doctor recommended it. What doctor? I didn't authorize the installation of cameras in my house. Dr. Mercer thinks you have dementia, Indigo said, as if she were explaining something to a child. You're forgetting things, becoming aggressive. Those are signs. I don't forget things. And I'm not aggressive. I'm protecting my property from thieves. The conversation turned into a fight. Axel accused me of being paranoid. Indigo threatened to call a psychiatric emergency. I felt like I was going crazy, not from dementia, but from the fact that my own family had turned into my enemies. In the evening, I called Cedric and told him about the cameras and the changed locks. They're building a case for your incapacity, he said seriously. Hope, you need to get out of there. This is my home, I was adamant. I'm not going to let them survive me. Then let's move fast. Tomorrow I'll bring in a new lawyer and a psychiatrist. We'll prove you're sane. But the next morning, while I was having breakfast, the doorbell rang. It was 2 policemen, a doctor in a white coat and a social worker. Axel and Indigo came with them. Mr. Taylor, one of the policemen began, your family is concerned about your condition. Dr. Mercer would like to examine you. I don't need to be examined. I retreated into the house. And I didn't consent to it. Unfortunately, your consent is not required in this case, said Dr. Mercer, a full man with thinning hair. We have a court order for a compulsory psychiatric evaluation. He handed me the paper. I ran my eyes over the lines. Show signs of aggression, possible dementia, risk to self and others. That's a lie, I looked at Axel. Did you sign it? My son looked away. Sokum, we're worried about you, Dad. The doctor and the social worker entered the house despite my protests. They asked questions, looked around the premises, took notes. I tried to stay calm, answered their questions, proved that I was completely sane. Your son says you're accusing him and his wife of theft, Doctor, Mercer said. Is that true? Yes, because they did withdraw money from my account without authorization. Chornanom. He also says that you think your dead wife's will is forged. It is forged! Enid would never have left me out of her will. You see, Indigo intervened. He refuses to accept reality. Enid changed the will because she was worried about his ability to manage his finances. I felt like I was being backed into a corner. The more I protested, the more I confirmed what they said about my paranoia. I want my attorney present, I finally said. I have the right to do that. Of course, Doctor, Mercer nodded. But for now, I have to make a preliminary judgment. And unfortunately, it's not in your favor, Mr. Taylor. I saw Indigo smile in satisfaction. After the doctor and the police left, I immediately called Cedric. He arrived half an hour later, but by then Axel and Indigo had already left, warning me that they would return in the evening. With a decision. They want to declare me incompetent, I said, desperate. Take the house, the money, everything. We won't let them, Cedric was determined. I've already contacted the psychiatrist our lawyer recommended. He'll be here in an hour to give an independent opinion. But Axel and Indigo were back early, with Dr. Mercer and 2 orderlies. Dad, Axel looked almost genuinely concerned. We found a good place for you. Golden Autumn Nursing Home. They'll take better care of you there than we can here. I'm not going anywhere. I backed toward the stairs. This is my home. I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Mr. Taylor, Dr. Mercer said. The court has ruled that you need supervision and care that your family can't provide at home. What court? When? There was an emergency hearing today. Indigo pulled out a paper. Here's the ruling. I couldn't believe my eyes. How could they get a ruling like this in a few hours? It's illegal, I turned to Cedric. Tell them. Of course it's illegal. Cedric took the document and looked at it. Satiri, there's no judge's signature on it, only a seal. It's unenforceable. The signature is on the 2nd page, Indigo said coldly. And it's perfectly legal. Your brother, mister, Cedric, can challenge it in court if he wants. But for now, the order is still in effect. The orderlies stepped toward me. I backed away. Don't touch me. I'll call the police. The police already know, Doctor, Mercer replied. They approved the measure. Cedric tried to intervene, but he was pushed back. He shouted that he would sue, that it was kidnapping, but Indigo remained unfazed. You have 15 minutes to gather the necessary items, Mr. Taylor, she said. Just the essentials. We'll bring the rest later. I went up to the bedroom, accompanied by one of the orderlies. My hands shook as I put my clothes into my bag. This couldn't be happening for real. It couldn't. As I walked down the stairs with bag in hand, I saw Indigo standing by the fireplace, looking at the pictures on the mantelpiece. Enid and I's wedding picture, Axel in his graduation gown, little Octavia in her grandmother's arms. You won't get a penny, she said, catching my eye. Everything is already registered to us. At that moment, I realized that she had been planning this for a long time, probably since the beginning of her and Axel's marriage, patiently waiting for Enid to die so she could take over everything. Why? Was all I could ask. Why would you do that? Business, nothing personal? She shrugged. A house in a neighborhood like this costs a fortune, and you'll live out your last years in comfort, not worrying about a thing. Cedric hugged me goodbye, promising to work things out in the next few days. But I saw in his eyes what I felt myself, helplessness in the face of a well-planned con. I was led out of the house and put into a car. The last thing I saw when I looked back was Indigo standing in the doorway, with a triumphant smile on her face, and Axel behind her, pale and unsure, but doing nothing to stop what was happening. The Golden Autumn Nursing Home turned out to be an old 3-story building on the outskirts of town, not nearly as comfortable as Indigo had promised. I was put in a small room with one window overlooking the parking lot, a bed, a nightstand, a closet, and a chair. Welcome to your new home, Mr. Taylor, the nurse said as she helped me set up my things. Dinner is in an hour in the common dining room. I sat down on the bed after she left, and for the first time in the whole crazy day, I let myself cry. Not from grief or even anger, but from the realization of absolute betrayal. My son and his wife hadn't just stolen from me. They'd stolen my life, my dignity, my freedom, and I didn't know if I could ever get any of it back. I spent my first week at Golden Autumn in a fog, waking up in someone else's bed, looking out someone else's window, eating tasteless food in a dining hall that smelled of medicine and old age. Didn't talk to anyone except the nurses who stopped by to see if I'd taken my meds. What medication? I wasn't sick, but they insisted, and it was easier to swallow the pills than argue. On the 8th day, Indigo arrived. Without Axel, without Octavia. She entered my room without knocking, in a business suit, leather folder in hand, as if for an important meeting. "Hope," she nodded. "How are you settling in?" I sat in the chair by the window and didn't turn to her. "Why are you here?" "I need to sign some papers." She pulled some papers out of a folder. "Formalities to formalize your stay here." "Where's Axel?" I asked, still not looking at her. "Why didn't he come?" "He had a lot of work to do." "You know, remodeling a house takes time." I turned around sharply. "Remodeling?" "Yeah, we decided to update the interior," she shrugged, as if it were the most common thing in the world. "You realize the style is a little outdated. Octavia needs a modern room. Axel and I want to expand the bedroom." "Have you moved into my house yet?" "Our house," she corrected. "According to Enid's will, it belongs to Axel, which means it belongs to me." I stood up, feeling the blood rush to my face. "It's a fake. Enid would never have left the house to Axel bypassing me." "Oh, but she did," Indigo smiled. Dash, dash. "Here, you can take another look." She handed me a copy of the will, the same one I'd found in the safe instead of Enid's in my original document. The signature looked like Enid's, but there was something different about it. In 40 years of marriage, I'd seen her signature thousands of times on checks, postcards, Axel's school papers. And this one was almost the same, but not quite. "It's a forgery," I repeated, "and you know it. It's going to be hard to prove." Indigo put the document away, "especially considering your unstable condition. The doctors think you're developing dementia from the stress of losing your wife." "What doctors? That corrupt Mercer of yours?" "Dash him, too. 3 independent specialists, Hope. They all agree that you need the care that we can't provide at home." "You're lying," I clenched my fists. "It's all a lie." "Anyway," she put the papers on the table, "you need to sign these documents. For your own good." "What is it?" "A power of attorney to manage your finances. We'll pay for your stay here. Buy the things you need. You'll have nothing to worry about." I took the documents and slowly, page by page, tore them up. "Get out." Indigo looked at me without surprise, as if she'd expected this reaction. "Hope, you're making this harder than it has to be. We can make your life here comfortable, or very uncomfortable. The choice is yours." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm stating the facts. Think of Octavia. She misses you. Don't you want to see your granddaughter?" That was a low blow. Octavia was the only person in their family I really loved. A smart, sensitive girl, so much like Enid. "Don't you dare use Octavia." "I'm not. I'm just reminding you that your behavior affects how often you see her. If you cooperate, she can visit you every week. If not..." I felt a helpless rage. She was blackmailing me with my own granddaughter. "You're a monster," I said quietly. "What have I done to you? Why are you doing this to me?" "It's nothing personal, Hope." Indigo gathered up the scraps of papers. "Business is business. You and Enid were sitting on a gold mine, and you didn't even realize it. A house in a neighborhood like this, with a lot like this. We'll sell it for 5 times what you paid for it." "Sell it?" I couldn't believe my ears. "You're going to sell our house?" "Of course we are. Axel and I want to build a new one in a better neighborhood, with a pool and a tennis court for Octavia." I slumped in my chair, stunned. They weren't just stealing my house, they were going to erase my and Enid's entire life. All the memories, everything we'd spent decades creating. "Does Axel know about this?" "Of course he does, it was his idea." I didn't believe it. My son, no matter how weak he was, couldn't decide to sell the house he grew up in. "I want to talk to him. He'll visit you when he's ready." Indigo headed for the door. "Think about my offer, Hope. I'll be back in a week with new paperwork." When she left, I sat still for a long time, staring out the window at the empty parking lot. My thoughts were jumbled. How could they do this? How could Axel betray me and his mother's memory? And most importantly, what to do now? I tried to call Cedric, but my phone was gone. It must have been left at home, or Indigo must have taken it. The nurse who stopped by to check on me said that personal calls could only be made from a special room at certain hours and under supervision. Am I like being in prison? I asked. Not at all, Mr. Taylor, she smiled strained. It's for your safety. Many of our residents suffer from memory problems. May call somewhere in the middle of the night, forget to hang up. Regulars. Like a hotel. Except you don't check out of this hotel. In the evening, in the dining room, I looked around for the first time. At the neighboring tables sat elderly people, some with clear eyes, some with absent ones. Some were eating by themselves. Others were being helped by orderlies. A few tables away from me sat a thin old man with a military bearing. He noticed my gaze and nodded. After dinner, he came up to me in the corridor. New? He asked without preamble. How long have you been here? A week ago, I answered. How did you get here? Did the kids give you away? Something like that. My name is Leonard Brooks. He held out a dry, wiry hand. Former Marine Colonel. Hope Taylor, I shook his hand. Former building inspector. Nice to meet you, Inspector, he grinned. Would you like to have a drink? Do they serve alcohol here? Not really. Come on, I'll show you. Leonard led me to a small lounge at the end of the corridor. There were bookshelves, a TV, a few chairs. In the corner sat two men and an older woman with bright red, obviously dyed hair. Guys, this is Hope, the new guy. Leonard introduced me. Hope, this is Norman, Gregory, and Ruby. Norman, a heavy-set man with shortness of breath, raised his hand in greeting. Gregory, stubby and balding, with glasses on the tip of his nose, nodded. Ruby gave me an appraising look. Handsome, she said. A widower. Ruby, Leonard snapped at her. Not all at once. Yes, I said. I buried my wife a month ago. I'm sorry, dear. Ruby shook her head. My husband died 5 years ago. Then my son took my house and sent it here. It's a story as old as time. Leonard pulled a bottle of whiskey and 5 glasses from the stash behind the books. We have a club here, he explained, pouring a little. We get together, talk about life, share the news. We drink to those who aren't with us. I took a drink. The whiskey burned my throat, but it was strangely relieving. Your story? Gregory asked. How did you end up here? I told them everything about Enid's death, about Indigo and Axel's machinations, about the fake will, about how I'd been forcibly brought to Golden Autumn. Scoundrels, Leonard commented. But not surprising. A lot of people here have similar stories. My daughter sold my house while I was in the hospital with a stroke. Norman nodded, said it was best for everyone. And my nephew forged my signature on the papers and took all my savings, Gregory added. Now he doesn't even visit. I have 3 kids, Ruby sighed. They all wanted my house downtown. They fought a real war among themselves. The middle son, the trickiest one, won. Said he'd take care of me, but instead he sent me here. I listened to their stories and felt strangely relieved. Not because others were having a bad time too, but because I wasn't alone. These people understood what I was going through. So what now, I asked. You just resigned? Who said we've made peace? Leonard snorted. We're struggling, in our own way. How? Well, for starters, we stay human, not turn into vegetables like they want us to. Ruby winked. We don't take their damn pills that dumb us down. I throw them away, Gregory explained. I pretend to swallow them, and then I hide them behind my cheek and throw them away. And we help each other, Norman added. Leonard was a lawyer before the army. He knows the law. A Marine colonel and a lawyer? I looked at Leonard in surprise. A military lawyer, to be exact, he smiled. I know a thing or two about human rights and how to protect them. So you don't just accept it? Like hell I do. Leonard pounded his fist on the armrest. I've already gotten 3 of them out of here. Norman's daughter is too powerful in the local government. Leonard almost got me out, Ruby smiled. My middle son has already agreed to negotiate. Soon I'll be living with my youngest in Arizona. How do you do that? I looked at Leonard with renewed respect. First, we collect evidence, he lowered his voice. Record conversations with relatives, document conditions of confinement, document violations. Then we find a good lawyer. Not one of those corrupt cunts who work with the administration of such institutions, but a real fighter. I have my wife's brother, Cedric, I said. He promised to help, but I can't get in touch with him. That can be arranged, Leonard nodded. Sure. Ruby has a cell phone hidden from the staff. You can call it. Really? I looked at Ruby hopefully. Of course, darling, she patted my arm. Only at night, when the nurses are doing their rounds. I'll come in and see you. That night, for the first time in my time at Golden Autumn, I fell asleep with the feeling that all was not lost, that there were people who understood and were willing to help. Ruby came in around midnight, knocking quietly on the door. I was awake waiting for her. Here, she handed me a small, old-model cell phone. Quickly, before anyone saw. I dialed Cedric's number, praying he hadn't changed it. After the third ring, he answered. Dash, dash. Hello? Cedric, it's Hope, I said softly, almost whispering. I'm calling from someone else's phone. Hope! There was relief in his voice. Oh, thank God. I tried to visit you, but they wouldn't let me in. They say you don't want to see anyone. Lies, I gripped the phone tighter. I didn't say that to anyone. They're isolating me. That's what I thought. Don't worry, I'm working on it. I've hired a good lawyer, a specialist in this kind of thing. We're preparing a lawsuit. Indigo came by. I told him about her visit, about her plans to sell the house. She said it was Axel's idea. I don't believe it, Cedric sighed. He's weak, but he's not cruel. It was all her. How are you? Where are you now? I got an apartment in Baldwin Park. I'll be here until we get your issue resolved. Enid. She saw something like this coming. What do you mean? Those conversations we had in private. She was worried that Indigo would try to take over everything after she died. We made preparations. How? Not over the phone, Cedric said carefully. I'll just say it's not as hopeless as it seems. Stay there. I'll find a way to visit you. Ruby tapped me on the shoulder and pointed to her watch to end the conversation. I have to go, I said to Cedric. I'll call again if I can. Take care of yourself, Hope, and don't take any pills if you can avoid it. They might give you something that will affect your mental clarity. After that conversation, I felt a surge of strength. Cedric hasn't abandoned me. He's working on a solution. And I'm not alone here. I have new allies. The next day I had breakfast with Leonard and his gang, as he jokingly called their company. They showed me how to get rid of the pills discreetly, told me about the daily routine, who among the staff could help, and who should be avoided. The key is not to look broken, Leonard said. Participate in their stupid activities, smile, be a model resident. It'll put their guard down. I took his advice, started going to group classes, painting, music therapy, even physical therapy for seniors. Talked to the psychologist, politely answering her questions without showing my real attitude to the situation. Gradually, the staff began to treat me better, with less wariness. A week after talking to Cedric, Axel arrived. Alone without Indigo. He looked tired and nervous. Hi, Dad. He hugged me awkwardly. How are you? Fine, I tried to speak calmly, especially for a man who'd been forcibly placed in a nursing home and stripped of all his possessions. Axel flinched. Dad, that's not true. We're taking care of you. You're fine here, aren't you? Safe. Why are you doing this, Axel? I looked into his eyes, looking for a little bit of remorse. How can you sell the house you grew up in, where your mother lived? Where you, he stammered. Did Indigo tell you? Yes. She said it was your idea. That's not true. He raised his voice, then looked away and spoke more softly. I didn't want to sell the house. It was all her. But the house is really old. It's going to cost a lot to fix up. Don't make excuses. I looked away. You're letting her do this. You're an accomplice. What was I supposed to do? There was resentment in his voice. She's my wife. We have a family. I can't go against her. Even if she does wrong. Even if she steals from your father? It's not that simple. Axel ran his hand through his hair. You don't understand. I understand that you're a weak man, Axel. You always have been. Enid protected you, kept you safe. And now you're letting your wife dishonor her memory. Don't say that. His eyes filled with tears. I loved Mom. I love you, too. It's just, I don't know what to do. Do the right thing. I looked at him firmly. Give me back my house, my money, my freedom. I can't, he shook his head. Indigo. She'll find a way to get what's hers anyway. She won't stop. Then at least don't stop Cedric from helping me. Cedric? Axel tensed up. You talked to him? I did, and he's working on getting me out of here. Indigo said he wants the house for himself, that he had some papers from his mom. And you believed her? I grinned bitterly. Cedric is the only one trying to help me, and you, my son, betrayed me. Axel sat with his head down. Then he took an envelope out of his pocket. Here, it's from Octavia. She misses you. She wanted to come, but Indigo said it wasn't a good time. I took the envelope. Inside was a hand-drawn card, our house, me and Enid standing on the porch. And it said, I love you, Grandpa. See you soon. Octavia. I felt a lump come up in my throat. Tell her I love her too, and that everything will be okay. Axel left, promising to bring Octavia next time, even though we both knew Indigo wouldn't allow it. After he left, I sat with the card in my hands for a long time, thinking about how things had gotten to this point. How could my own son become so weak, so malleable to manipulation? That evening, I showed the card to Leonard and the others. Your granddaughter? Ruby smiled. She draws beautifully. She's a good girl, I nodded. Not like her parents. Use that, Leonard advised. If she's on your side, she could be an important witness. How old is she? 14. Old enough for her testimony to carry weight in court? If she can testify that you were forced here, that you're sane. I don't want her involved, I shook my head. This isn't her fight. All battles become our battles when those we love suffer, Gregory said quietly. My granddaughter helped me when everyone else turned their backs. Don't underestimate children, Hope, I wondered. Maybe they were right. Maybe Octavia really could help. But how to contact her? Indigo must be monitoring all her contacts. First, we need to gather evidence, I decided. Record the conversations with Indigo, if she comes again. Document everything that happened. That's the right approach, Leonard approved. Ruby, give him your tape recorder. Ruby pulled a small device about the size of a lighter from her robe pocket. Here you go, darling. The recorder is activated by this button here. The battery lasts for 4 hours of continuous recording. I took the recorder, feeling the determination building inside me. I'm not going down without a fight. I won't let Indigo and Axel steal my life, my memories, my home. And most importantly, I will not let them betray Enid's memory with impunity. In the days that followed, I methodically gathered information. I talked to the staff, finding out who paid for my stay, what documents were provided upon my admission. I asked other residents about similar cases, how they had or had not been able to protect their rights. Leonard introduced me to Martha, a former nurse who had worked at Golden Autumn until her retirement and now lived here herself. She told me about how some families fake medical reports, how the administration turns a blind eye to violations for the sake of money. But there are ways to fight back, she assured me. The main thing is not to give up, and I did. For the first time in a long time, I felt purpose, meaning. I was no longer a helpless victim of circumstance. I was beginning to fight for my life, for justice, for Enid's memory, and with each passing day, my resolve only grew stronger. It had been 3 weeks since I'd been placed in Golden Autumn. I had already gotten used to the routine, rising at 6 in the morning, breakfast at 7, then a walk in the garden, weather permitting, group activities, lunch, afternoon rest, dinner, and early dismissal. Like in the army or prison, everything on a schedule, everything under control. Thanks to Leonard and his friends, I learned to get around some of the rules. I didn't take sleeping pills or antidepressants that were prescribed without my consent. Used Ruby's cell phone to occasionally contact Cedric. Documented my everyday, recorded conversations with the staff. Indigo hadn't shown up since that visit when I tore up her papers. Axel called twice, but I refused to talk to him. Only told him through the nurse that I would communicate if he brought Octavia. He didn't. That Tuesday morning, I sat in the common living room playing chess with Gregory. He was a good player, methodical and patient. I was making a move when I noticed an unusual commotion at the receptionist's desk. Some man was insistently demanding to be let in to see me. That's my brother-in-law. His voice echoed down the hall. I have every right to visit him. Cedric. I recognized his voice and stood up, knocking over several figures. Sorry, Gregory. We'll continue this later. I hurried to the counter. Cedric was standing there, in a gray suit, with a leather briefcase in his hand, arguing with the receptionist, a full woman with a disgruntled face. We have clear instructions from Mr. Taylor's family, she said. Visits only by prior arrangement and in the presence of his son or daughter-in-law. This is absurd. Cedric was indignant. I am his next of kin after his son. Cedric. I approached them. I'm here. He turned around, a look of relief mixed with anxiety on his face. Hope. Finally, they wouldn't let me in. Mr. Taylor, the receptionist turned to me. Your sister-in-law left explicit instructions. Indigo has no right to decide who I can see. I tried to speak calmly but firmly. Cedric is my late wife's brother, and I want to talk to him. But protocol? To hell with protocol, I felt myself boiling. I'm not a prisoner. If you won't let him in, I'll file a complaint with the Elder Rights Commission. As far as I know, it's a violation to restrict contact with relatives without a medical reason. The receptionist was confused. Apparently, she was not used to such resistance from guests. All right, she finally gave in. But only in the common area, not in your room. Fine. I nodded and gestured for Cedric to follow me. We walked to the far corner of the common living room, where there were 2 armchairs by the window. It had a clear view of the entire room, and no one could approach without being noticed. How are you? Cedric squeezed my shoulder. Are they treating you okay? Could be worse, I shrugged. The food is decent, and the staff is mostly polite, but I'm here against my will, and it's killing me. I'm working on it. Cedric lowered his voice. I'm getting the paperwork together, hired a great lawyer, but there's something more important I need to tell you about. He looked around, making sure no one was listening, and then continued even more quietly. Do you remember those conversations Enid and I had alone together? Sure, I nodded. You didn't tell me what you were talking about. Enid saw it coming, Hope. Cedric looked me straight in the eye. She knew that Indigo would try to take over everything after she died. What? But why didn't she tell me? She didn't want to worry you in your last days. Said you were already suffering, seeing her fade away. Didn't want to add worry about the future. I felt a lump in my throat. It was so like Enid to protect me even when she needed protection herself. What had she done? Cedric opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder of documents. Here, take a look. I started looking through the papers. They were legal documents drawn up 2 months before Enid's death. According to them, she was transferring a large portion of her personal assets, the country house in the mountains that we'd bought 10 years ago as a vacation spot, shares in several companies, and a large sum of money into Cedric's trust, with the stipulation that a month after her death he would transfer it all to me. But why a month? I looked up at Cedric. Why not right away? Enid said that Indigo doesn't act spontaneously, but according to a plan, that she'd wait a while after the funeral and then she'd start. Enid wanted Indigo to reveal her cards fully before we intervened. I shook my head, shocked by Enid's foresight. Even as she was dying, she was thinking of ways to protect me. But what about the house in Baldwin Park? Our joint accounts? They're more complicated, Cedric sighed. The house is in both of your names, and when she dies, the law passes to you. But Indigo somehow forged Enid's will. I've seen it, I nodded. The signature looks like Enid's, but there's something wrong with it. We've hired an expert graphologist. He thinks it's a forgery, but we need more proof for the court. The bills. That's tricky too. Indigo made the withdrawals before we could do anything. So what do we do? Cedric smiled for the first time in the entire conversation. For starters, get you out of here. I've already filed an unlawful detainer. We have a report from an independent psychiatrist who is willing to testify that you are completely sane. When will that be? The hearing's in a week. But there's something else. Cedric lowered his voice again. The country house Enid signed over to me for you. Indigo doesn't know about it. What? I was surprised. How is that possible? Enid bought it in her maiden name, through a shell company. It wasn't on your joint tax returns. It was a personal investment that only you two knew about. And now me. I remembered when Enid and I bought that house. A small but cozy cottage in the mountains, 2 hours from Baldwin Park. We went there several times a year, enjoyed the quiet, the nature. It was our secret hideaway from the hustle and bustle of the city. So what are you suggesting? After we get you out of here, you can live there. The house is fully equipped, away from the city. Indigo won't find you while we fight to get the main house and bills back. The plan sounded reasonable, but there were still questions. What about Axel? He knows about the country house. Tunnel. He does, but he doesn't know it's yours now. And he doesn't know the exact address. You've always driven there yourself. Never taken him there in recent years, right? Yes, I nodded. He'd never shown any interest in country life, and Indigo never did. That's good, Cedric put his hand on my shoulder. We'll get you out of here, Hope. I promised Enid I'd take care of you, and I'll keep my word. I felt tears come to my eyes. For the first time in a long time, there was real hope. Thank you, Cedric. Without you, I would have... Don't thank me, he shook his head. Enid was my only sister. We weren't always close, but in the end, she trusted me with the most precious things she had, taking care of you. That's when the nurse came up to us. Mr. Taylor, it's time for your medication. I'm fine, I answered. Can I skip it today? I'm afraid not, she smiled strainedly. The doctor insists. Cedric straightened up. What medication are you giving him? I can't discuss that with you, the nurse said. It's confidential. I want to know what I'm taking, I insisted. It's my right. A sedative and a mild antidepressant, she replied reluctantly. For your own good. I didn't agree to take antidepressants. I was firm. And I don't need a sedative. Mr. Taylor, your son signed a... My son has no right to decide for me. I raised my voice. I'm legally capable of making my own decisions about my health. Cedric stepped between me and the nurse. I'm Mr. Taylor's lawyer, he lied confidently. Adam, and I insist on a complete list of the medications he's being given, including dosages and doctor's orders. If that document is not provided within the hour, I will file a complaint with the licensing board. The nurse turned pale. I'll pass your request on to management. She walked away, leaving us alone. Don't take anything they give you, Cedric whispered. They could be drugging you with drugs that dull your consciousness. We need you to be lucid for the trial. I don't take them anymore, I said. I've learned to hide the pills. But they're watching. Just hang in there a little longer. Things will change soon. We talked for another hour or so. Cedric told me that he had already contacted the bank where the shares Enid had transferred to him for me. The transfer process had been started, and soon I would be financially independent again. What about Indigo? I asked. Have you talked to her? Not directly, Cedric shook his head. But after I meet with you today, I'm going to their house. I'll show them the documents, explain the situation. They need to understand that the game is over. Be careful, I warned him. Indigo's not one to give up easily, and she knows how to manipulate Axel. I know, Cedric nodded, but the truth is on our side, and so is the law. When Cedric was about to leave, I walked him to the lobby. The receptionist met us again, now with a man in a suit. Mr. Sanders, she said to Cedric. This is the director of our facility, Doctor. Pratt, a pleasure. Cedric nodded without much enthusiasm. I would like to speak to you about your visit, Doctor, Pratt said. Privately, I apologize, but I'm in a hurry. Cedric was polite but adamant. If you have any questions, you can contact my lawyer. Here's his card. He held out the card, which the director accepted with obvious displeasure. Mr. Sanders, we're acting for Mr. Taylor. His family has deprived him of his freedom and his property, Cedric interrupted, and we will fight it by all legal means. Have a good day. He hugged me tightly goodbye and whispered, I'll be back in 2 days. Hang in there. After Cedric left, I went back to my room, feeling a mixture of hope and anxiety. There was a plan, but its realization depended on many factors. How would Indigo and Axel react? What would they do about it? And most importantly, would I be able to get out of here? That evening, I told Leonard and the others about Cedric's visit and his plan. It's a good plan, Leonard said, but be prepared that Indigo won't give up so easily. I know, I nodded. She'll fight. You need protection here while the process is going on, Ruby said. They might try to make things difficult for you. How? Increase your medication, Gregory explained, or diagnose a sudden deterioration to isolate you from visits. We'll keep an eye on you, Norman assured him, but be careful. Cedric kept his word and returned 2 days later. But he did not look as confident as the last time. I've been to see them, he said when we were alone in the common parlor. Axel and Indigo's. How was it? Not easy, Cedric sighed. Indigo was furious. She didn't want to let me in at first, but I insisted. I showed her the documents, explained that Enid had anticipated their actions and had taken action. How did they react? Axel was shocked. It seems he really didn't know about the country house, the stocks and the money Enid had signed over to me for you. Indigo, Cedric grimaced. She threatened to sue me for fraud, screaming that the documents were fake. Are they real? Absolutely. Notarized, properly registered. Enid did everything by the book. So what now? Now we go according to plan, Cedric leaned closer. Your release hearing is in 5 days. The lawyer says the odds are good. We have an independent psychiatrist report, witness testimony, your own notes. What about the main house? The money Indigo withdrew from the accounts? It's going to be longer and more complicated, Cedric admitted. But we're fighting. The main thing now is to get you out of here. Indigo will probably fight back, no doubt, but we're ready for it. Cedric told me the details of the plan. After the hearing, if the decision is in my favor, I'll be picked up immediately from Golden Autumn and taken to the country house. There I will be safe while the battle for the main property is fought over. And Octavia? I asked. I miss her. I saw her yesterday, Cedric smiled. She sends her regards to you and says she loves you. Indigo didn't want her to talk to me, but the girl insisted. Is she okay? Yeah. Upset about the whole situation, but she's hanging in there. We talked for another hour or so, going over the details of the upcoming hearing. Cedric explained that I would have to answer the judge's questions, show clarity of mind and a strong desire to live on my own. As Cedric left, I walked him to the door. There we were surprised to see Indigo standing at the receptionist's desk with a man in an austere suit. There you are, she smiled coldly. We were just talking about you. Indigo, Cedric nodded. I didn't expect to see you here. I came to visit my father-in-law, she shrugged, and to discuss with the administration some changes to the visitation schedule. What kind of changes? I was alarmed. On Dr. Mercer's recommendation, she pointed to the man beside her, your contacts will be limited, for your own good. Dr. Mercer, the same psychiatrist who had signed off on my incapacity report, nodded with a professional smile. Mr. Taylor, your condition requires calm and stability. Emotional encounters can be detrimental to your health. It's illegal, Cedric objected. You can't restrict his contact without a court order. We have a ruling that he's incapacitated, Doctor, Mercer countered, and we're acting in his best interests. That order is being appealed, Cedric was adamant, and the hearing is in 5 days. We know, Indigo smiled even wider, and we'll be there. With new medical reports, I realized what she was getting at. They were going to present new evidence of my incapacity, maybe fake test results or observations. It won't work, I said firmly. The truth is on our side. Truth is a relative term, Hope. Indigo looked at me with fake sympathy. Come on, especially when you're talking about someone with advanced dementia. Cedric hugged me goodbye. Be careful, he whispered. They're up to something. I know, I replied. I'll see you in court. The day of the trial came unexpectedly quickly. I hadn't slept much the night before the hearing, running through possible scenarios in my head, preparing for questions and objections. Leonard helped me pick out my clothes, my only decent suit, the one Axel had brought in my first week here. You look solid, Leonard approved when I was dressed. It's important to make a good impression on the judge. If I even get there, I was skeptical. Indigo would probably try to do something about it. Your lawyer should be here any minute, Leonard reminded me. They can't stop you from appearing in court under subpoena. At exactly 9 in the morning, Cedric and Iris Paxton, the very lawyer he had hired, arrived at the Golden Autumn. The front desk tried to keep them away from me, citing some kind of quarantine. But Iris produced a subpoena and threatened to call the police. "Ready?" Cedric asked as we got into his car. "As ready as I'll ever be," I nodded. "What about Indigo and Axel?" "They're already in court with their lawyer," Iris said. "Apparently they're preparing for a tough confrontation." The ride to the courthouse was spent in tense silence. I stared out the window, watching the familiar streets of Baldwin Park whiz by. My town, my home, my life, all of it had been taken from me. "Don't worry," Cedric said as if he'd read my mind. "We'll get it all back." There was an unpleasant surprise at the courthouse. At the entrance to the courtroom stood Indigo and Axel with a tall man in an expensive suit, obviously their lawyer. Next to them, I noticed Dr. Mercer and some other man with a folder of documents. "Another expert," Iris whispered. "They want to back up Mercer's diagnosis." Indigo saw us and smiled strangely. "Hope, it's good to see you out of the boarding house. Though I must admit, I'm worried about your well-being. It's so stressful in your condition." "My condition is fine. I cut him off." "Especially for a man who's being held illegally in a nursing home and stripped of all his possessions." Axel looked uncomfortable, avoiding my gaze. He whispered something to Indigo, but she only waved it away. "Mr. Taylor," their lawyer addressed me. "I'm Clifford Bennett, representing your son and his wife. I hope we can settle this matter amicably to mutual satisfaction. The only thing that would satisfy me would be a full restoration of my rights and the return of my property," I replied firmly. "I'm afraid that's impossible," Bennett sighed with fake regret. "In view of your unstable mental state," Cedric stepped forward, stepping between Bennett and me. "All medical aspects will be discussed in court, Mr. Bennett, and I assure you our independent expert has a very different opinion of Mr. Taylor's condition." At that moment, the doors of the courtroom opened and the bailiff invited us in. We took seats at the plaintiff's table, Indigo and Axel and his team at the defendant's table. The judge, an older woman with an attentive gaze, was going through the documents. "Case number 3421 for invalidation of Hope Taylor's incapacity," she announced. "Is the plaintiff present?" "Yes, Your Honor." Iris stood up. "Iris Paxton, representing Mr. Hope Taylor. Defendants? Clifford Bennett, representing Axel and Indigo Taylor, Your Honor." The judge looked at me, Mr. Taylor, are you claiming that you were wrongfully adjudicated incompetent and placed in a nursing home against your will?" "Yes, Your Honor," I stood up. "I am fully competent and do not require constant care or supervision." Mr. Bennett, the defendant's position?" "Your Honor," Bennett rose. "My clients acted solely in Mr. Taylor's best interest. After the death of his wife, he showed signs of major depression and cognitive impairment. 3 independent psychiatrists have confirmed the diagnosis of early-stage dementia. In this condition, he cannot adequately care for himself or manage his finances. We have an independent expert report refuting that diagnosis," Iris objected, "as well as testimony from the nursing home staff that Mr. Taylor is fully oriented in space and time and shows no signs of cognitive impairment." "Your Honor," interjected Dr. Mercer, whom Bennett had invited to the table, "as the physician who observed Mr. Taylor, I am pressing for a new evaluation. The condition of dementia patients can fluctuate, and today, Mr. Taylor may seem quite adequate, but that does not invalidate the overall diagnosis." The judge listened carefully to both sides. "I will consider all the medical reports," she said, "but first I'd like to ask Mr. Taylor himself a few questions." I stood up again, ready to be questioned. Mr. Taylor, how old are you?" 68, Your Honor." "Do you remember when your wife died?" "Yes, Your Honor. Enid died on April 21st of this year. Cancer. Can you give me today's date?" "Today is the 25th of May, Wednesday." "That's correct." The judge nodded. "Tell me, why do you think you were illegally placed in a nursing home?" "Because it was done against my will on the basis of false documents. I do not suffer from dementia or any other disease that would render me incapacitated. My daughter-in-law Indigo and my son Axel fabricated the documents to gain control of my estate." "That's a serious charge," the judge observed. "Do you have evidence?" "Yes, Your Honor," Iris interjected. "We have audio recordings of conversations between Mrs. Taylor and Mr. Taylor where she openly states her intentions." "Objection," Bennett jumped in. "These recordings were made without my client's consent, which is a violation of the law." Your Honor, Iris parried, the recordings were made by Mr. Taylor in a nursing home where he was held against his will. The privacy statute doesn't apply in this case because we're talking about recording illegal acts. The judge thought for a moment. I will listen to these recordings in my chambers and decide whether they are admissible. Now I'd like to hear from an independent expert. Dr. Clark, the psychiatrist Cedric had hired to examine me, was called to the stand. She presented her report, which stated unequivocally that I was not suffering from dementia or other cognitive impairments that could affect my ability to function. Based on the tests performed in personal interaction with Mr. Taylor, I can state that he is fully oriented in space and time, has a clear memory, and is capable of making informed decisions, she concluded. Bennett attempted to discredit her findings by insinuating bias, but Dr. Clark confidently rebuffed all his attacks, citing objective test results. After a 2-hour hearing, the judge recessed to review all the materials presented. Cedric, Iris, and I went out into the hallway, where we ran into Indigo and Axel. "This isn't over," Indigo hissed. "You're not going to make it, Hope." "Why are you so obsessed with this?" I asked bluntly. "Is it the money? Is it the house?" "It's about justice." She lifted her chin. "You and Enid had everything, and Axel had nothing. It's time to fix that. Axel is our son," I looked at him. "Everything we have would eventually go to him." "Legally. When?" Minus Indigo grinned. 20 years from now. We have to wait until you deign to die?" "Indigo." Axel finally raised his voice. "Don't say that." "How am I supposed to say it?" She turned to him. "You're the one who complained that your parents never helped us financially, that we were paying the mortgage while they sat on their savings." "I never said I wanted to take the house or the money away from them." Axel looked shocked. You just whined and did nothing," Indigo cut him off. "Like always. If it wasn't for me, we'd still be renting that tiny apartment and dreaming of a better life." I watched the scene with growing realization. Indigo wasn't just manipulating Axel. She despised him, exploited his weaknesses, his complexes, his dependence on her, and he was letting her do it. "Axel," I turned to my son, "did you really think your mother and I didn't help you? We paid for your education, gave you a down payment on your apartment, helped with the Octavia expenses." "I know, Dad." Axel lowered his eyes. "It's just that Indigo always said it wasn't enough, that other parents do so much more for their children." "What other parents?" Cedric intervened. "The ones who die young and leave all their inheritance to their children? Or the ones who give up their own lives to provide a luxurious existence for their adult sons and their wives?" Indigo threw Cedric a hateful look. "You have no right to be here at all. You are not a member of the family. I am Enid's brother," Cedric replied calmly. "And I'm doing her last will to protect Hope from the likes of you." "Enid's last will and testament is written in her will," Bennett interjected, stepping toward the group. "And according to it, the entire estate is to be administered by her son." "It's a forged will," Cedric objected, "and we have proof of it." "What proof?" Indigo crossed her arms across her chest. "Your fantasies?" "No. The opinion of an expert graphologist, the testimony of witnesses, and—" Cedric paused. "Enid's original will." "What?" Indigo went pale. "That's impossible. The original was in the safe, and we—" She faltered, but it was too late. "You what?" Iris picked up on it. "You stole it? Substituted it? Destroyed it?" "That's not what I meant," Indigo tried to correct herself. "I meant to say that we've seen the original, and it matches the copy we provided to the court." "That's a lie." I took a step toward her. "You forged Enid's will, withdrew money from our accounts, and got Axel to sign the papers to put me in a nursing home." "All for money. For our future," Indigo exclaimed. "For Octavia. Do you think an education at a good university is cheap? Or medical treatment if she gets sick? Or a house with a pool and a tennis court?" I interrupted, remembering our conversation in Golden Autumn. Indigo stopped talking, realizing she'd said too much. Axel shifted his gaze from her to me, clearly shocked at what he'd heard. "Indigo," he spoke softly but firmly, "you said we were doing this for Dad, that he needed care, that he couldn't do it alone. I am, she tried to pull herself together. Your father needs looking after. And the house. The house is too big for one person. Selling it and investing the money is the smart thing to do. What about taking all the money out of the accounts? Forging mom's will? Is that a smart move too? I don't, she hesitated. Axel, not here. We'll discuss this at home. No, he shook his head. Dash, I want to know the truth now. Did you use me to take over my parents' property? Used you? Indigo laughed bitterly. You can't make up your own mind about anything. You always rely on others. First mom and dad, then me. Without me, you'd still be nothing. Working in the same low-paid job, afraid to ask for a promotion? So that's what you think of me. Axel looked like he'd been punched. I'm just a tool. Don't be so dramatic, Indigo rolled her eyes. We're a family. I care about our future, about Octavia's future. I just have the courage to do what needs to be done. I watched their confrontation with pain and pity. My son, whom Enid and I had raised with love, had become so dependent on the approval of others that he had allowed his wife to manipulate himself, to betray his own parents. Axel, I put my hand on his shoulder. It's not too late to fix this. He looked up at me, his eyes full of tears. Dad, I didn't know. I didn't realize. Axel, Indigo's voice was ringing with rage. Don't you dare! Remember who was always there for you, who supported you when you couldn't get a promotion, when you were afraid to ask for a raise. Your parents only criticized you, and I believed in you. That's not true, I shook my head. Enid and I had always supported Axel. Yes, we wanted him to become independent, not afraid of difficulties, but we never refused to help him when he really needed it. Lies, Indigo raised her voice. You always thought he was weak, a loser, and I was the only one who accepted him for who he was. Accepted, Cedric intervened. Sarah, you just called him helpless, unable to make decisions. That's not acceptance, Indigo. That's manipulation. At that moment, Octavia appeared in the hallway. She was in her school uniform with a backpack over her shoulders. When she saw us, she froze. Grandfather? Her voice trembled. Are you here? Octavia! I couldn't contain my smile. How you've grown this month. She rushed to me, hugging me tightly. I missed you. Mom wouldn't let me visit you, said you needed rest. I don't need peace, I stroked her head. I need my family. Octavia, Indigo's voice turned honeyed. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at school. Our classes have been cut, the girl replied, not letting go of me. I heard from my dad that there was a trial today, so I thought I'd come. Without permission? Indigo frowned. We'll discuss it at home. No, Octavia turned to her mother. I won't keep quiet any longer. I heard you and Daddy fighting about Grandpa. How you said you had to sell Grandma and Grandpa's house to buy a new one. How Daddy didn't want to, but you insisted. Octavia, Indigo tried to take her hand. You don't understand adult things. Sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. I understand, Octavia stepped back. You lied to Daddy. You lied to me. You said Grandpa was sick, that he needed care. But really you just wanted to take his house and his money. Don't you talk to me like that, Indigo snapped. I am your mother, and you will respect me. Respect has to be earned, Octavia said quietly. Grandma Enid used to say that. I looked at my granddaughter with pride. At 14, she had more maturity and moral fortitude than her father had shown in his entire life. We're leaving. Indigo tried to grab Octavia's arm, but she dodged. Now! No, Axel intervened. Octavia's right. It's time to stop lying. He turned to me. Dad, I'm sorry. I was weak. I let Indigo convince me that you needed help, that you couldn't do it alone after Mom died. I didn't know about the fake will, about the withdrawn money. I swear. Axel, Indigo was furious. You're betraying your family. No. He looked at her firmly for the first time. I'm fixing my mistake, and I'm stopping betraying my father. At that moment, the judge stepped into the hallway. The parties are invited to the courtroom, she announced. I'm ready to rule. We returned to the courtroom. Octavia sat next to me, despite Indigo's protests. Axel, after a second's hesitation, sat at our side. Indigo was left alone at the defendant's table, unless you counted their lawyer, who looked confused by the sudden split among his clients. Having considered all the materials presented, the judge began, having heard the testimony of experts and witnesses, I have come to the conclusion that there is insufficient evidence to find Hope Taylor incompetent. The medical reports are contradictory, but objective tests and my personal observation indicate that Mr. Taylor is fully sane and capable of making his own decisions. I felt a huge weight fall from my shoulders. Octavia squeezed my hand tightly. Sonam, moreover, the judge continued, the audio recordings presented, which I accept as admissible evidence, indicate possible wrongdoing on the part of Indigo Taylor against the estate of Hope Taylor and his late wife Enid Taylor. I am forwarding this material to the prosecutor's office for further investigation. Indigo turned pale. Bennett whispered something quickly in her ear, but she only waved it away. I hereby order that the judgment of incapacity of Hope Taylor be invalidated, that his involuntary confinement in the Golden Autumn nursing home be revoked, and that he be restored to full rights to manage his own property. In addition, I am issuing a temporary restraining order against any and all transactions in real property and bank accounts belonging to Hope and Enid Taylor, pending the outcome of the investigation regarding possible fraudulent activity. The judge banged her gavel, ending the hearing. I couldn't believe it was over so quickly and in my favor. Cedric hugged me tightly and Iris shook my hand, congratulating me on my victory. This isn't over, Indigo hissed as she walked past us toward the exit. I'll appeal and prove that Enid's will is genuine. Don't bother, Axel looked at her with contempt for the first time in ages. I'll testify against you. I'll tell you how you made me sign the papers to put my father in a nursing home. How you convinced me it was for his own good. Traitor, she hissed. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret, Axel replied, is that I didn't have the strength to confront you sooner. Indigo stormed out of the hall, slamming the door. Bennett followed her, muttering something about the possibility of a pretrial agreement. Dad, Axel turned to me, I understand if you can't forgive me, but I want to make up for everything I've done. I looked at my son with mixed feelings. Anger, disappointment, pity, but still love. He was my only child, a part of me and Enid. We have a long way to go, Axel, I said finally. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, but we will begin that journey. Octavia clung to me. Grandfather, are you coming home now? To your home with Grandma? Yes, little one, I smiled at her. I'm going to come home. Will I be able to come to see you? Like I used to? Of course, I stroked her head. My house is always open to you. As I walked out of the courthouse, I took a deep breath of fresh spring air. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. There was still a fight ahead to get my money back, to punish the guilty, to restore justice. But the worst was over. I was no longer a prisoner, no longer a helpless old man to be locked up and forgotten. Where to now? Cedric asked when we reached his car. Home, I answered. To Enid's in my house. Returning to the house where Enid and I had lived for 35 years was more difficult than I had expected. As I opened the door with my key, Cedric had made sure the locks were reset. I felt a strange mixture of joy and bitterness. This was my home, my sanctuary, but without Enid it seemed empty, despite all the belongings and furniture. The first thing I noticed when I stepped inside was the changes Indigo had managed to make in the month I'd spent at Golden Autumn. Enid and I had disappeared from the mantelpiece, replaced by some abstract figurines. There was new furniture in the living room, a leather couch, and a glass coffee table, completely out of keeping with the style of the house. They've already started remodeling, Cedric commented, looking around. It's a good thing we were there in time to intervene. I went into the bedroom I shared with Enid. Her things were gone from the closet, her collection of porcelain figurines from the dressing table. In their place were faceless, decorative vases. It can be fixed, Cedric put a hand on my shoulder, noticing my gaze. Her things are probably in the garage or the attic. They didn't have time to get rid of them. We searched the house and indeed found boxes of Enid's things in the attic. Photos, books, personal items. Everything was packed away as if it was for discard or charitable donation. I spent hours sorting through those boxes, returning each item to its proper place. By late afternoon, Iris called with good news. The court had seized all the accounts, including the ones to which Indigo had transferred money from Enid and I's joint accounts. There was one more trial to go, but the chances of getting the money back were high. What about the country house? I asked Cedric as we ate dinner in the kitchen. The one Enid had signed it over to you for me? It's yours, Cedric smiled. The papers are all ready. You can move in any time you want or use it as you did before, for a vacation. I'll stay here. I looked around the kitchen, where I could still feel Enid's presence. This is our home, but maybe I'll go there sometimes on weekends. Would you like to join me? I'd love to, Cedric nodded. I've taken a vacation from work, so I can stay in Baldwin Park for a couple more weeks. I'll help you get the house back to the way it was. I was grateful for his offer. The thought of being alone in a house full of memories scared me. The next morning, Axel arrived unexpectedly, alone without Indigo. He looked gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes. Daddy, he shifted awkwardly from foot to foot at the door. Can I come in? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face. The other part wanted to hug the son I loved despite everything. Come in. I stepped back, letting him into the house. He came in and looked around, noticing the changes I'd already made, returning the pictures to the mantelpiece, putting the new furniture in the garage, restoring the coziness Enid had created. It looks like it used to, he remarked quietly. It's my house, I shrugged. I want it to be just the way your mom and I liked it. Axel sat down on the couch, and I sat in the chair across from him. Cedric tactfully retreated to the kitchen, leaving us alone. I left Indigo, Axel said after a pause, or rather kicked her out of the apartment. She's at her sister's now. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt satisfied that he'd finally broken up with the woman who'd been so destructive to his life and our family. But another part remembered that this was still his wife, the mother of his daughter. And Octavia? With her, Axel lowered his head. Indigo won't let me take my daughter, and I'm not sure I can win a custody battle. I don't have the resources she does. Have you talked to a lawyer? Not yet. It all happened so fast. After the trial, we had a huge fight. She accused me of betrayal, threatened that I'd never see Octavia again. I couldn't take it anymore and told her to get out. I looked at my son and saw him as the insecure boy he had always been. Even now at 42, he looked lost, looking for approval, for guidance. What are you going to do next? I asked. I don't know, he shrugged. Get a lawyer, fight for the right to see my daughter, look for a new job. My current company has too many Indigo connections. What about the house? That apartment you were living in? It's mortgaged. I'll keep up the payments, I guess. Indigo won't be able to claim it outright if we divorce. I've been making most of the payments. We talked for another hour or so, about his plans, about a possible divorce, about how to protect Octavia from the consequences of a family breakup. I gave advice, but I kept my distance. The wound of betrayal was still too fresh. Dad, Axel said before he left, I know you can't forgive me now. You may never be able to forgive me completely, but I want you to know that I am truly sorry for what I did, and I will do everything I can to make things right. Time will tell, I replied. I need space right now, Axel. Time to recover, to think things through. He nodded, understanding. Can I call sometimes? Check on you? You can. I softened a little. Tell Octavia she can always come to me. Anytime. I will, he smiled weakly. Thanks, Dad. After he left, I sat in the living room for a long time, looking at the pictures. Enid with little Axel in her arms, Axel in his graduation gown, our family on a picnic in the park. Happy moments that now seem so far away. How are you? Cedric came back into the living room with 2 cups of coffee. I don't know. I took a cup. Part of me wants to forgive him. The other part can't forget what he did. That's normal. Cedric sat down across from me. Betrayal of loved ones hurts the most. Give yourself time. The next weeks were filled with things to do. Cedric and I restored the house to the way it had looked when Enid was alive. I returned to my hobby of restoring antique furniture, setting up a workshop in the garage. Working with wood was soothing, allowed me to focus on something concrete, to distract myself from heavy thoughts. Octavia came every weekend. At first with Axel, who brought her and waited for her in the car, not daring to enter the house without an invitation. Then she started to come on her own, by bus or bike. Mom is furious, she told me as she helped me restore an old sideboard. She says you're turning me against her. Is that so? I raised an eyebrow. No, Octavia shook her head. I can see for myself. She's changed since my grandmother died. Or maybe I'm just starting to notice things I didn't see before. People don't change that fast. I handed her the sandpaper. She'd probably always been like that. She just hid it well. Dad says you're getting a divorce. He mentioned it, I nodded, watching her reaction carefully. I'm glad Octavia was concentrating on sanding the wood. He deserves better. Someone who will truly appreciate him. The wisdom of this 14-year-old girl amazed me. She seemed to understand the situation better than her father. What about you? I asked cautiously. How are you dealing with all this? Fine, she shrugged. I don't care who I live with after the divorce, as long as I can see you and Dad. Your mom can try to limit those visits. Akronam. Let her try. Octavia grinned with a determination that reminded me of Enid. I'm old enough for the court to take my opinion into account, and I'll tell them I want to spend time with you and Daddy. At the end of June, another trial was held to recover the money Indigo had withdrawn from Enid and me. Thanks to audio recordings made at Golden Autumn and the testimony of Axel, who confirmed that his wife had acted without his full understanding of the situation, the court ordered all the funds returned. Indigo received a suspended sentence for fraud, which was a rather lenient punishment given the circumstances. After that trial, I finally decided to cut all ties with her. Even seeing her in the courtroom was hard. Her cold, calculating gaze, her lack of any remorse. She had lost, but she didn't admit defeat, and I knew she wouldn't stop there. Be careful, Cedric warned me. People like Indigo don't know how to lose. She might try to get revenge. Let her try. I was calm. Now I was ready for her tricks. By mid-July, life began to settle down. Cedric was back in San Francisco, but he came every weekend. He and I often went to the country house, the one Enid had signed over to him for me. There, in the silence of the mountains, among the pines and fresh air, I felt a special closeness to her, as if she were still there. One day, sitting on the terrace of the country house and watching the sunset, I said to Cedric, "You know, I think Enid saw it all coming. Not just Indigo's attempt to seize our property, but the way it would turn out." "What do you mean?" Cedric sipped his whiskey from his glass. "She knew that you and I would become close, that you would become more than just a brother-in-law to me, but a true friend, almost a brother. She was always perceptive." "Siren, yes, she was," Cedric smiled sadly. "I wish we'd been closer when she was alive. So many years lost." "But what's not lost is what's left." I raised my glass. "To Enid, to her wisdom and foresight." "To Enid," Cedric echoed. In August, I decided to expand my furniture restoration business. What started out as a hobby gradually turned into a small business. I created a website with Octavia's help and started taking orders not only from people I knew, but also from new customers. The work gave me not only additional income, but also a sense of satisfaction, an opportunity to create something beautiful with my own hands. Axel gradually rebuilt his life. He found a new job in another company, rented a small apartment not far from my house. Divorce with Indigo was dragging on. She used all possible legal tricks to delay the process and get the maximum benefit. But Axel was determined, finally showing the character he'd always lacked. We started seeing each other more often, usually when he was dropping off or picking up Octavia. Sometimes he'd stay for dinner and we'd talk, discreetly, cautiously, but gradually rebuilding some semblance of a relationship. I could not forgive him completely, but I no longer felt the sharp pain of betrayal that I had felt before. "You've changed," I remarked one day as we sat in the garden, watching Octavia swing on the old swing I had once built for Axel. "What do you mean?" He looked at me with interest. "More confident, more self-reliant," I was choosing my words. "More like my real self, not a shadow of Indigo. I've realized a lot in these months." Axel looked at his daughter thoughtfully. "About myself, about her, about what our relationship was like. It's been sobering. And painful, I guess." "Yes," he nodded. "To realize that the person you lived with for 11 years never really loved you, but only used you, it hurts. But it's liberating in a way. You'll find someone better," I patted his shoulder awkwardly. "Someone who appreciates you." "Maybe," he smiled. "But right now I want to focus on Octavia and on repairing my relationship with you, if you'll let me. I didn't answer, but nodded. It was a small step, but a significant one. In September, I went with Cedric on a trip down the coast, a 2-week trip that Enid and I had always planned, but never realized because of her illness. We stayed in small coastal towns, walked the beaches, talked about everything in the world. I could feel the wound left by Enid's death and Axel's betrayal slowly healing inside me. When I returned home, I found that during my absence, Axel and Octavia had tidied up the garden, trimmed the bushes, planted new flowers, painted the garden furniture. It was their surprise, their way of saying, "We care about you." In the fall, Leonard, my friend from Golden Autumn, finally got out of there. I helped him find a small apartment near me, and we started seeing each other regularly, playing chess, discussing books, just talking. Ruby and Gregory joined us occasionally too. We became a sort of informal club, older people who refused to surrender to age and circumstance. In October, on the anniversary of the day Enid and I bought our house, I threw a small dinner party. I invited Cedric, Axel, Octavia, Leonard, and his friends. We gathered in the garden, where I had set up a new table and chairs that I had made myself. To Enid, I raised my glass as everyone took their seats. She created this house, this hearth around which we are gathered today. To Enid, the guests echoed. And to new beginnings, Cedric added, for the courage to start again, even when all seemed lost. I looked at the people at my table. Cedric, who had become closer to me than my own brother. Axel, who despite his mistakes, was trying to better himself. Octavia, who showed wisdom and fortitude beyond her years. Leonard and his friends, who taught me that it's never too late to fight for your rights in your life. This was not the family I envisioned a year ago. Not the life I had planned for when Enid was alive. But it was a good life. A life full of genuine relationships, mutual respect, and support. After dinner, when the guests had dispersed, I sat in the living room looking at Enid's picture on the mantelpiece. In that moment, I felt a strange calmness, as if she was looking at me and approving of what I had done, the way I had rebuilt my life from the shards. In losing the toxic part of my family, I gained something more valuable: inner peace and new, healthy relationships. A relationship based not on manipulation and self-interest, but on genuine caring and love. I knew there were more challenges ahead. Indigo was still a threat. She had recently tried through the courts to restrict Octavia's communication with me, though unsuccessfully. Axel was still struggling with his inner demons, with years of dependency and submission. I myself still missed Enid every day, waking up to an empty bed. But I no longer feared the future. No more fear of loneliness. No more fear of old age. I knew I was surrounded by people who truly cared about me, and that I myself was strong enough to cope with any hardship. Before I went to bed, I went out into the garden. It was a clear, starry night. I looked up at the sky and thought about how Enid loved nights like this, how we often sat here together, holding hands, talking, or just silently enjoying each other's presence. "I made it, Enid," I whispered into the night, "just as you believed I made it." And somewhere deep inside, I felt her response, her approval, her love that would never fade, even when she was no longer with me.